Thank you so much. First of all, a huge thank you to all our businesses who are out there looking at the next phases. And one of the things that you said you wanted when we solicited your input and how we could support you was simply a statement of we need to know more about marketing and how marketing has pivoted in response to the COVID experience. So I have reached out to Lauren Kronthal and asked her to support BBB by putting together an interactive marketing presentation. So Lauren Kronthal will be operating as our moderator. And I simply want to say, I said, Lauren, what else could I say about you other than you're beautiful, witty, and incredibly brilliant? So she did remind me there are other criteria about her. Lauren I've known her for years. She's has worked for corporate entities. So that was really where she sort of grew up and developed both her leadership skills, and she led marketing also for smaller companies and now owns her own outfit. Hello, it's LK Marketing. And it's just a really cool boutique consulting company, providing its clients with the guidance, partnering, and project experience. And Lauren has years of experience, and she really takes that strategic outlook and brings it to the small business owner. So I am so honored to welcome Lauren today to serve as our moderator. She'll introduce our panelists, and we'll take it away. Thank you again.
Thanks, Angie. Clay, if you want to advance, that would be great. I was delighted when Angie asked me to lead this, and I realized that I would be far better as a moderator by bringing in really good, experienced talent that's actually been delivering good, solid marketing, including digital, to Maryland businesses for years. So I'm excited to just simply be your MC, your host. You've heard it a lot. These are super challenging times. We don't need to say it. Everybody's living it, whether it's dealing with health and emotional safety, along with the challenges of keeping your business up and running. Marketing should be playing a giant role in how you're addressing today's business challenges. And today our speakers will take you through that from end to end, marketing through digital. So that you can be prepared for what's happening today and engaging in that, as well as what's coming, right? Especially with yesterday's news of tentative reopening. We're all really excited about that, but there's a ton of concern that's going to spin up this crisis in a new way. Are you prepared? So with that said, Clay, if you'll advance again, I'm delighted to introduce our speakers, two really successful folks supporting Maryland business. Dina, you have been doing this for a long time with your organization called Insight Creative. The thing that I really love about Dina's approach is she looks at things from the beginning, from the strategy side, but she can also offer a suite of capabilities end to end, which you'll hear about from her as she delves into the first part of the presentation. But we all know about the super sparkly, amazing stuff of digital, so we thought we would entertain you guys with two speakers instead of one. Jeff has a company called Dragonfly Digital Marketing, and he'll address specifically the digital area. But of course, these two folks overlap, so you may hear things from both of them in the marketing space. So we will entertain questions at the end. This stuff is chock full, so we're going to go speaker to speaker. Please, as Angie suggested, load your questions into chat. Anything we don't get to, we commit to answering and posting back at the end of the presentation. Also at the end, you'll see that anything underlined in the light blue is an actual hyperlink. So when you access this presentation, you'll be able to get the web links of our speakers, their organizations, and how to contact them if you want to dive in and go deeper with them around something that you may not have time to today. So I don't want to take any more time from where the meat is. I'd like to turn it over to Dina.
Well, thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Angie and Clay. So to dive right in, I'm Dina Wasmer, president of Insight Creative. And knowing that the participants today likely fall into categories of under 10 employees, very very much business as well as working on the business. And from what I gather, some home services. What we're going to talk about today, we're going to try to tailor it as much to you all as possible, but certainly use the chat feature and then the Q&A if there's anything that we didn't touch on that you're really curious about. Without spending too much time on this slide, this is really just a bullet point of what we're going to cover today about how to market when budgets are tight and how to sell in this particular climate, technology, and then the distribution channels that both Jeff and I think are the ones to pay most attention to given this particular situation. So Clay, you can move to the next one. So first off, how to market when budgets are tight. So right now, people have been furloughed, laid off, or part-time. The just employee situation is affecting a lot of people. And that may be the case when you may have been operating with a lean staff to start with. So some suggestions about how to market when budgets are tight is first, trim the fat. Look at where you may be spending money right now that isn't really producing a return on investment. And sometimes it's little things that add up. So if you are, have invested in some technology or some tools that you were testing out. A little bit of that.
Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. Hang on. For me. Uno momento. There we go.
Okay. So really looking at, if it's you or your accountant or bookkeeper, ask them to print out all of the details of what you have, because many of us sign up for things that we may not realize are, $10 a month or $100 a month, whatever it is, and those things can add up. So start with those. I would not recommend taking a broad stroke red line to any line item in your balance sheet or in your books right now. Of course, I'm not the financial expert, but it's really more about looking at potentially, besides trimming the fat, reallocating resources to where you feel like you're really going to need them right now. So focus in on your short-term goals. And then given Governor Hogan's announcement last night, short-term, we don't know exactly when phase 2 is going to kick in, but as of last night, things have changed. So you have to really look at your business uniquely and say, okay, what do I need between now and the end of June to make payroll, to stay afloat, to prime myself for the future, whatever that time frame is for your short term, and then look at, okay, aside from that, what else do I need to be doing to prime myself for the future? And the future may be just through the balance of this year or into 2021. So reallocating resources where maybe you have invested in something right now that isn't really relevant because people are working from home more so, people are not in their cars driving around as much. So if it makes sense to reallocate, then we would recommend you do that. Additionally, DIY it. So most marketers, myself included, are advocates for things being as professional as possible. And that's still the case, but the reality is that there are a lot of great DIY or do-it-yourself tools available from a technology standpoint, video standpoint, virtual backgrounds for presentations, a lot of things that you can do cost effectively and with just a little bit of skill or maybe a little bit of help to effectively market yourself when budgets are tight, as well as when timing and getting messages out in a timely fashion are important. And then lastly, seek out deferred or other payment plans. So there's the PPP and lots of other things that hopefully you've investigated with your financial advisors. But as far as marketing goes, other ideas for that are to look at what you can do now that you need, but reach out and be transparent about what your means are. So you don't want to take advantage of any situation, but if there are some deferred payment plans or stretching things out a little bit longer than they normally would be, just have those open conversations. So next one, how do you sell without being insincere? So if we were doing this presentation yesterday before Governor Hogan's speech, some of this would be even more relevant, because the reality is that the stats are staggering about how many people have been affected by the virus, how many lives have been lost due to it or impacted. And being sincere and not trying to oversell at that point was even more critical. It's still a factor, but now that we're in phase one of this reopening and entities are allowed to have 50% capacity, the messaging has quickly shifted, where people are going to be more tolerant of messages that are, hey, we're open for business and this is what we can offer. But I would encourage you to always pay particular attention to who your target audience is. You know, who are your customers? Who are your prospects? You know, what demographics do they, you know, how might they be affected by this? Their families. Get to know them as personally as you can, so that when you're reaching out to them, you don't come across sincere. Because at the end of the day, people generally like to work with people that they know, like, and trust. And if you develop that that relationship with your clients and even your prospects early on, that will serve you well. There are also some trigger words. This has really affected people from a mental health standpoint. So pay attention to how you are delivering some of your messages, words that, you know, catastrophe and death and, you know, some of the obvious ones, but there are some others too. So be cognizant of you know, how you're positioning the situation. Most people are very much aware of you know, how catastrophic this has been, so you don't need to consistently remind people. So address it, but then move on to how you can proactively you know, work with folks or address their pain points at this point in time. And then just simply, you know, try to put yourself in their shoes as much as possible. And that's somewhat common sense and is not unique to the pandemic situation. But if you understand or try to what they're going through, you'll have a much better way of meeting them where they are and delivering information and messaging and services that are going to be most applicable to them. Of course, be professional through all of this. And then what can you give in order to get? So if it's not just discounts, but if additional value adds or these deferred payments or some sort of additional aspect of your value proposition that you can give to people so that they'll be even more receptive to you, inevitably they will refer you, they will leave a good review, and you will get more business from that as a result. So technology, I'm going to just glance over this too for the sake of time. So many of you are probably have already 2 months into this, using different conference calling between Uber Conference or Free Conference Call, GoToMeeting, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and other things. But as far as using technology to communicate when we are in this social distancing situation, if you're not already primed for that, definitely reach out to folks to get that assistance so that you can continue to work in as much of a streamlined and professional fashion as possible. All right, so now we get into the meat and potatoes of it. So my colleague Jeff and I will be touching on these. I'm going to focus on the first few and then pass the baton over to Jeff. So the marketing distribution channels that we think will provide the biggest boost over the short and midterm is what we're going to dig into next. So Clay, we can move on there. Okay, so signage. So depending on what type of conference call or webinar tool that's being used, different ones have different capabilities. But when possible, if you can use a virtual backdrop, and at the top here, you'll see that there's the same gentleman with his laptop. One, he's got some dirty clothes and some books and some random stuff behind him. And then in the other, he's got a branded backdrop. So whether it is getting some sort of signage or backdrop behind you to cover anything unsightly, we would recommend that. Or if you're using any of these conferencing, if they offer virtual backgrounds, those come in handy too, to again, just try to portray as professional a light as possible. Additionally, for those in retail, or now that things are 50% capacity, it may sound obvious, but right now it's really about letting people know that you are open for business, and if so, how. So signage is a big piece of it. There also the keeping 6 feet apart, so the floor circles that you might have seen, or the plexiglass, making sure that people understand how you're protecting your team, your customers. There are a lot of opportunities out there to, in terms of signage and displays, to help portray that and get that brand awareness and visibility that you need. There was a shortage of face masks. Now there are a lot of companies that are generating face masks. Some of them are not necessarily up to healthcare standards, but they serve the purpose. And so even branded face masks, particularly for those of you who are going to be going in and out of customers' homes, instead of a random bandana, or I saw a gentleman at the 7-Eleven with a sweatshirt wrapped around his head. Branded face masks that just have your logo or your color palette. Continue to say, I'm professional and I'm coming in your home, and there's some decent price points for that. Of course, outdoor signage for retail or restaurant, or any emergency services are key as well. And video. So where video used to require high-end production and a videographer, there's still a time and a place for that, and when budget and time permits, definitely go that route. However, under these circumstances, falling back into that DIY scenario, Zoom has recordings, other tools have recordings just like this one. There are even your iPhone, your Android, you can take with your own camera or mobile device, take a video, and so that you're conveying to your customers what's going on right now. So we're calling them these messages from the CEO. So whether it's, we're open for business and this is how we're operating to serve you. As I mentioned before, making sure that people understand that you're operating within government guidelines, and what you can do for them right now. So video is a great distribution tool for that, because you get as you can see in this particular example, you get the CEO, it's coming directly from them, it's very sincere, it's timely, it's personal, and with video, there's a digital footprint. So upload it, post it to your YouTube channel. From there, you can then distribute it through email, social media, on your website. So it's got a lot of legs, as I like to say. So in terms of the return on investment, it's definitely worthwhile. There's also, you can use this for educating folks, providing information, things that you used to do face-to-face that now you need to provide like a step-by-step how-to. Video can be a great tool for that. And some tools are listed here in terms of how you can DIY that a bit. So the Zoom recordings, Vidyard, particularly if you're doing any sort of sales training, as well as Animoto is another tool that's about 20 bucks a month that has some DIY capabilities too. And now, as far as CRM and email, so a lot of people have email capabilities. I've seen some people use it in a way where they start to bombard folks and use it where they don't have anything super timely or relevant to say. You don't want to do that. You still want to be cautious about how you're utilizing the tool. But email is great because it's very cost effective. It's still one of the, if not the most, highest return on investment marketing tools out there. But it really depends on your contact list. So a CRM, or a customer relationship management tool, some people aren't using an official tool. They might have, every salesperson has their contacts in their Gmail or their Outlook, and there's no centralized repository for contacts, name, company, email address. I would encourage you, if things are a little bit slower right now, to use this time to pull all of your contacts together, clean up your database, and then invest in a CRM. And there are a few listed here, some of which may be, more industry specific. And if you already have one, like I mentioned, work to really clean it up, work to segment it. So into current clients, prospects, referral sources, vendor partners, or even at a more micro level that may be even more relevant going forward, so that you can serve up the right information, be it through video or through text or images and other things, to the right person at the right time with the right message. It's going to be much more effective than if you try to do one general message out to all of these different audiences. Some are going to resonate more so than others. And there are some tools here suggested about if you're not using email from a bulk sending capabilities. There are a few suggestions on this PowerPoint. And of course, websites. So there are still people who do not have a website and are doing business well. They are few and far between. So for those of you who don't have one, I highly encourage you to get one. For those of you who have one and it's been set it and forget it for a while, now is also a good time to reevaluate your website. Make sure that what you said you did and showed that you did 5 years ago or whenever you set it up is still relevant today. Also, even if your website itself is in good shape, there are some things that you may want to consider adding to it, particularly in this day and age when you need to convey some of those aforementioned messages about how you're operating during the pandemic, or now that you're operating 50% capacity. So in this slide at the top, you'll see there's a notification bar. So there are some tools. Hello bar is one. There are others where you can add kind of a disruptor at the top of your site. There are also things like pop-ups. You don't want to get too pop-up heavy. That can impact negatively your search engine optimization and the user experience. But something like a notification bar is at the top and out of the way. There are also things like live chat or chat bots that, with some time and attention to how you set it up, if your staff has dwindled from 10 to 5 or 10 to 1 or whatever it is, and you now have to be strategist, doer, dog walker, everything in between, then to extend your sales force or to automate things as much as possible when it comes to lead generation or even customer service, a chatbot can come in handy for that as well. And with that, I'm going to pass the baton over to my colleague Jeff to dig into some more of the digital recommendations.
Thank you, Dina. It's a perfect transition. You started with the website, and one of the main goals of digital marketing is to drive traffic to your website, converting traffic. So I wanted to start there. And I also want to start with a quote from Albert Einstein, which says, "In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity." So everything Dina and I are telling you to do, or your homework, whatever it is, there are opportunities for you to not only get through this situation, but also come out the other end stronger than you were before. So I first want to talk about the 4 pillars of digital marketing. We have search engine optimization, and Dina hit on a few of these. We're going to go into a little more detail. And I realize that some of you have differing skill levels with all of this. Just you can pick and choose what you're comfortable with. If you need help, you can get some help. I know some of us have more time than we did before. Some of us have less time. So, just pick 2 or 3 things, focus on those and get those done, and you'll be stronger at the end of this than you were going into it. So starting with search engine optimization here. On the right-hand side, we have a sample search engine results page, and it's broken down into 3 sections. There's a lot of different SERPs. You can get a lot of different results here, but this one has, up top there, you have paid ads, and we'll get into that in a minute. Below that, you have Google My Business organic. That's organic traffic, but it's more closely associated with local SEO or Google My Business listings. And below that, in that little orange section, you have SEO, which is your organic traffic, and that's one result of thousands that you're going to get for any search. So during COVID-19, a few things you can do to better get through this situation. And I will say that SEO is, if you're looking for immediate traffic and you need something to happen right away, SEO is not going to be your solution. It's probably going to be paid ads, which we'll go over in a minute. But some things you can do right now, brainstorm keyword phrases based on intent. One of the biggest mistakes we see SEO-wise is that people optimize for just basic phrases like shoes or commercial contractor, rather than going into intent-based keyword phrases, which tend to be longer with more words in them. They get fewer searches, but the intent is there and the quality of the traffic is much better. So we always say it's better to bring 10 people to your site and have 2 convert than bring 100 people to the site and have 0 convert. So it's not really, a lot of people get focused on numbers and, how many visitors do I have, but it's not about that. It's really about conversions. So focus on intent-based phrases such as buy running shoes online or hire a commercial contractor for flooring in Baltimore, longer tail phrases. One thing you can do is reach out to partners right now to get links. So the 2 most important factors for SEO, I would say, are titles, which we'll get to in a second, and links, quality links. So one thing you can do now, if it's a little slower for you, or if your employees have a little extra time on their hands, have them reach out to your partners. If you're a commercial contractor, that might be a flooring company, use their flooring, reach out to them, see if they list their partners on their website. If they don't, maybe they'd be willing to post a case study from you or a testimonial. Just make sure you get a link when you do that. And there's also guest post opportunities. If they have a blog and maybe it's a little stagnant, they're not using it, you can say, hey, I'm happy to put together a piece of content for you. You can put it up on your blog. Just cite us or link to us in the author bio or within the content itself. And that's really a win-win. They get some content, you get a link. You can also work to improve your titles and descriptions, again, with his longer tail phrases. And below that, we have fix up your Google My Business profile, especially if you're a local business that does business locally. That maps result, which you see on the right-hand side there, is really important. So if you don't have Google My Business, set it up. If you do, double check it, go in there, make sure your categories are set correctly, your services are set, you have great pictures, spend a little time cleaning it up. So things you can do after COVID-19, use your keyword research, that list you came up with, and plug it into a tool such as Answer the Public, which I link to here. It has spit out a bunch of information. It'll give you related keyword phrases. It'll give you potential blog posts. It's really useful and it's free. Also, try to create some landing pages based on that keyword research. Try to focus on 10 phrases that are all related and intersperse them throughout the content. You want the keywords in the right places. Again, you don't want to stuff keywords. You want them tastefully throughout the content in a way that makes sense and that is easily readable. Okay, next slide, please. So next we're moving on to content marketing. Dina talked a lot about the CRM, and I totally agree that this is a great opportunity right now for you to build up your CRM, and those often also double as marketing automation platforms. We use SharpSpring, but there's also HubSpot, and there's a lot of others. Dina mentioned a few of them. So populate your CRM and get it set up for when things do pick up. You can set in some marketing automation, which means sending out automated emails to segmented lists. So now's the time to work on that. You can also run a SurveyMonkey survey. This is free up to, I think, 1,000 contacts or something. Now's the time to reach out to your customers and clients and ask them questions like, what products would you like to see, or how can we better serve you during COVID-19? And that survey is going to come in handy after COVID-19 when you're writing 1+ blog posts a month, at least 1, preferably 2. But if that's all the time you have, that's fine. You're going to use the questions that people responded with in a SurveyMonkey survey to come up with blog post topics. And when you write those posts, you're going to do longer form. You don't write longer just for the sake of writing longer, but typically content ranks better when it's longer form and it really goes into detail into the topic. Use those keyword research tools, come up with some keywords and try to hit all those keywords in the content. Also collect names and emails through gated content and form submissions. So form submissions on your website should automatically populate the CRM. And gated content would be, we've all seen it, something like a white paper where you have to give a name and an email address to get it. That can populate your CRM, and you can do automated follow-ups using the marketing automation. Next slide, please. Okay, so paid advertising. So right now, this is probably your greatest opportunity. So what happened in the paid advertising space is, and they function as something like Google Ads, functions as an auction. So people that were throwing a lot of money at all this, at their ads, and they weren't doing good, they didn't have well-optimized campaigns, they were taking up the first spot, they basically didn't know what they're doing. They all pulled out because they weren't doing well with the paid advertising. So what's happening now is you have greater impression share, which is your ads are being shown more often, but you're having to pay the same amount as you were before. So if you don't have a Google Ads campaign, now's the time to start one. And if you do start one, start small. And what I mean by that is do exact match keyword phrases. And that means you put brackets around it and you go for phrases that are longer tail, like commercial flooring contractor, Baltimore, Maryland. Your ad will only show for that phrase. It's going to eliminate any waste. You're not going to waste any money on this. And if you don't have a lot to put into the budget for ads right now, that's the way to go. So after COVID-19, you can open up your campaigns a little bit with modified broad keyword phrases, which means you put a plus in front of each of the words in that phrase. So plus residential, plus flooring, plus contractor, plus Baltimore. So the words don't have to appear necessarily in that order, but they have to be in whatever phrase was searched for your ad to appear. And this is just a good rule of thumb with paid advertising. Always monitor negative keyword phrases. So if you're selling shoes or whatever you're selling, and people are coming to seeing your ad when it free shoes is showing up, obviously you don't want them to, you're not giving away shoes, so you want to add free as a negative keyword phrase. That cuts down on a lot of waste, and you need to monitor that over time and try to create relevant landing pages so when you open up your campaign a little bit with the modified broads, you'll see more keyword opportunities. And when you get that data, you can use that data to determine landing pages. And a landing page is a page basically designed to convert. So you have a form up top, front and center, and then some data below that, some content, some video, whatever it takes to provide them with the information they need to convert. Next slide, please. And social media. Post occasional content that is informative during COVID-19. So I think we're all kind of burned out on the COVID-19 stuff. You see it in TV ads, you see it everywhere. So if you're in the healthcare industry, yeah, talk about COVID-19 and maybe mention it occasionally. But I think during this time, it's better to have more entertaining, positive, uplifting content. Try to humanize your brand with, being empathetic with your customers and clients. It's less about you now and more about socializing and supporting your customers and clients. Nurture new social relationships with social listening. Some CRMs like SharpSpring, I think HubSpot as well, allow you to do social listening. You can also use a tool like Hootsuite, which is $10 a month. That also help you post to your different profiles and listen for mentions of your business. You can also join Facebook groups during this time. After COVID-19, nurture your newfound relationships and continue doing what you were doing before. if it worked. If you found out some new things during COVID-19, start implementing that into your strategy. So some networks like Facebook, I believe, has seen lower engagement, while Twitter has seen greater engagement during COVID-19. So you may have to readjust afterwards. Just keep an eye on where the engagement is and adjust your strategy as needed.
Thanks,
So
Jeff.
that is, yep, no problem.
Let me get to the chat, see if we have any questions. Actually, one for you, Jeff, just came through from Peggy. Her question is, what are the best social sites during COVID? Where should Peggy be focusing on as far as social media?
Well, I think it depends on your business, what you're doing. Say, if you're dealing a lot with, a services industry, maybe LinkedIn would be better. But if you have some kind of products, you're taking high quality images, Instagram may be the better bet. I mean, unfortunately, that's not an easy question to answer. It really depends a lot on what works in your industry. And if you want to reach out to me afterwards, I can about your industry, I can maybe give you some better pointers.
Great. Hey, Clay, I actually have a couple of questions for the speakers, and then you can bust in if other come through the chat, because I can't really see that. But Dina, I have a question for you that came from Eric Benzer, who is an attorney and a business owner in the Hunt Valley area. Eric sees a lot of clients that are panicking right now, beyond obviously the COVID panic, but due to it, because most haven't actually planned for planning, right? Like, we stand up these businesses and off we go, and then we get a curve like this and we realize we don't have a plan. And within that, we don't even have a crisis communications approach. So I know that's a sweet spot of yours. How would you advise folks to think about planning? And isn't this a good time to really put that sort of traditional action into place?
Yeah, it's a good question. So as I mentioned earlier, I think it's important to look at what are your short-term goals and then your longer-term goals. I'm always an advocate for strategic planning and putting a strategic marketing plan in place so that you're not throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks. People are in panic mode right now, and that is typically the reaction is yikes. People are pulling out. How, what can I do? And unfortunately, there are some things out there that can take advantage of the situation. You want to, if you have a plan in place, it'll help you stay focused. So if you have any downtime, or I would suggest carving out time blocking some planning time. Now that you've been through this or are still going through it, while we might not get another pandemic, hopefully, it is a crisis that has impacted your business, and there may be others that come down the pike, but it's also created some new opportunities, as Jeff has said. So getting together with your team, even if virtually, finding a blank wall and some Post-it notes, however it is that you kind of brainstorm, and focus in on how you'd like to see your business change, and how it's needed to necessarily evolve in this new normal that everyone's talking about, and look at what those marketing distribution channels are, but focus on your audience and where are they and what's going to provide the best return on investment. And that's what a plan will do, not unlike a financial plan or any other type of professional services plan. You need a marketing plan.
Thanks. Clay, can I keep going?
We have one come in from Joanna. So the question is, what DIY tools would you suggest we look into for helping to market when budgets are tight?
I had mentioned some, and then I think, Clay, the presentation may be sent out after the fact, and so there'll be some listed there. But just to touch on them briefly, when it comes to video, as I mentioned, the Zoom recordings, You can use just your iPhone or your mobile device to take videos. So that's all DIY. You know, the emails and other tools aren't so much DIY, but they are very cost effective. So many email tools are free up until 2,000 contacts, and then it jumps up to $10 or $20 a month. So those are a few things that come top of mind. As far as websites, depending on the maturity of your business right now, you know, there are some quote unquote DIY website builders as well. So again, you know, happy to talk more offline about your specific industry if that would be helpful.
Great, thanks,
And
Dina.
I
And
think
yes,
if you, I just want to hop in and say, if you do any content, the tool that is linked to for my thing, the Answer the Public could be useful for you if you're going to be writing blog posts. And so.
Yeah, and Kiora.
Great. So Jeff, I have a question for you. There are a lot of digital tools, a lot of channels, a lot of options, and when done perfectly, they all provide and work together to build a really comprehensive communications program to audiences. Each platform, when balanced, strengthens the other, right? And especially when anchored by good content. If you're talking to a business sort of starting out with a planned digital program, I get that it needs to be customized for the business, but what are some of the thoughts that you take your clients through in recommending and building a balanced digital approach?
Well, I think developing a persona starting out and just figuring out, you know, whom you're trying to reach with your marketing. And then, you know, Dina had mentioned just trying to figure out where those people are and trying to reach them and then customizing the campaign from there. You know, having the right tools is invaluable. You know, we're an agency, so we do have the right tools, but, you know, something like a CRM, again, helps bring everything under one roof. SharpSpring, HubSpot, something like that. And they do social, they do content marketing. They don't do SEO necessarily, but, you know, rather than having a bunch of tools, starting with that is a good place to, you know, get your digital marketing going.
And Jeff, you may want to elaborate on this part of it, but you know, even Google Analytics and some of those reports require some interpretation, so it's not for the faint at heart. But if you have Google Analytics, it will tell you the different distribution channels that are driving things, driving traffic to your site, and so it will help inform you where, you know, what channels are working and where to spend more time and effort or less so. Particularly with the content marketing, you know, it helps you determine which of your blogs, your articles, your videos, and so forth are performing the best. And there are some strategies about what to do with those, you know, strongest performing pieces of content too.
So Dina, that's actually a great transition to the question I have around content. You've talked about it, Jeff's talked about it. For me, content's king as a marketer, not cash. I mean, without content, we are unable to do most of the things we need to do for our clients. But I think for small to medium-sized businesses, especially either when starting out in marketing their businesses formally and or in a DIY fashion, they don't always appreciate the devotion of time or muscle required to create a cache of content to do the kinds of things you guys are describing, whether it's outbound email or some of the digital activities, and how you balance that if you're going to ask for help from a professional, whether you're doing it yourself, how much time should you really think about allocating in the structure of building it out, or in a prescriptive manner, what portion of budget should be spent on this to support these initiatives?
Well, there were a few things in there, so I'll kind of start with, you know, content means a lot of different things. So content could be written material, and Jeff mentioned long form. So, you know, the algorithms change, but, you know, 1,200 word, you know, content is great, but not with a lot of very, very, very special kinds of adjectives in there. So even if you've got 500 words that's, you know, is more poignant in quality, quality is important, that has the keywords and things in it. Many people, especially small businesses, they're not writers. They're in the trades, or they're lawyers. And I'll say lawyers write a lot, but their way of writing and the way that they speak is very different than what I would say marketing writing. And so there are some challenges there with people knowing, gosh, I've got a ton of things that I could say, but I don't even know where to start, or what's the right format, or what's the right tone. So for people who are looking to DIY it a bit and aren't afraid of writing, but just need some guidance, I would reach out to, to folks, who specialize in that, and perhaps ask for guidance related to an editorial calendar. And what that means is, Jeff had mentioned a couple of tools that he uses, and that are available, that help look to see what's trending, what has the most search volume, can create some topic ideas related to your industry or a particular larger topic that you may want to speak on. And then that one topic might lend itself to 5 different blogs, or 2 blogs and a video, or a video teaser that supports the blog, or an ebook, or a white paper. So those are all different types of pieces of content, and there are others. So you can do it all your own, you can outsource it all, or you can kind of hybrid the two. And depending on the outcome will impact the budget associated with it. Everyone's going to be different. There are some single shingle, folks who can provide services at perhaps under $100 an hour. You have others who, some writers that are professional writers, may charge $200 per blog article that is written in an optimized manner. So just like anything, there are different providers, and it kind of depends what you're looking for, the quantity of it, the quality, the turnkey aspect of it, and so forth. But that gives you some range.
Thanks.
I just want to jump in. The question asked also what the percentage of the budget should go to content. We just, for most clients, we do about 50% of our budget, or our time spent, goes into content. So that's, just about a baseline for us.
Thank you for that. It's meaningful for folks to understand the importance of it. So thanks. Just to follow on, Clay, are there other questions that have come through chat?
Yep. So yeah, we had a question from Kelly. It's let's see here. So do either Dina or Jeff have an example, without naming the firm, of a middle of the road message? So some customers are scared to come out and are taking a very conservative approach to coming back into the economy, and others are very anxious to get back, even if it is the new normal. Asking customers to come back can be taken 2 different ways depending on the customer's mindset. So is there a good company or a good example that found the middle of the road messaging for that?
So to make sure I understand the question, so as far as middle of the road messaging, so what I gather from that is how to be sincere and acknowledge that we're people, even if we're allowed to go out and not be as quarantined, how do we don't say our doors are open, come in and everything's fine, versus just kind of come in, we're here, but we're careful, and these are the things that we're doing. So Kelly, if I got that right, I'll address it that way. I had mentioned earlier, whatever the distribution method is, whether it's over the phone, through a webinar, through video, through email, getting that message out that is authentic to who you are. So either you as the CEO, which then transcends into the brand and personality of the company, or whatever the company has been known for. So there, if it's a law firm or professional services firm, it may take more of a professional tone to it. Where if it's an organization that's more B2C, business to consumer, then it can take a bit more of an informal, lighthearted approach without being, tongue in cheek or anything. But I would just keep it as real as possible. And again, put yourself in their shoes. So if it were me, I would say, look, I know we all want to continue practicing safe habits, and we're doing that for all of the employees that we have who we want to take great care of, and also take care of you, our valued customers. So we've put all the things that we can in place to make your experience safe as well as enjoyable and get you what you need, and then move on to, as far as what you need, we recognize that our customers right now could really benefit from X, Y, and Z. And here's what we're offering, and kind of go on to your messaging in that way. So that's my best crack off the top of my head as far as a hybrid example.
Clay, are there other questions, or can I?
There's just one more, and I think it's sort of snowballing off of what you just said, Dina. Maybe do you have any specific suggestions for the sales team of a restaurant or hotel? Sheila is asking for help with her sales team, and she's in the restaurant and hotel industry. Do you have any specific messaging guidance for those industries?
Well, so perhaps we can talk offline. We were CMO for a vacation rental and hotel business for the last year and a half, and that industry has been hit really hard. And so there are some great resources, which if you're in that industry, you probably have access to. But in terms of, traveling in the new normal and what that messaging needs to be, some of it has to do with what areas are open and to what extent. This gets a little philosophical, but I think it boils down to being smart and a conscientious provider of something like travel, or where things are still a little risky and may involve airlines or other things. So it is still a precarious thing, but with more things opening up and more protocols in place to keep people safe, what I've been working with folks is to say, it may not be right now, but when you're ready to travel and when things do open back up, we're here for you, and here are the things that we have in place. And to also inspire people. The self-quarantine is making people depressed and anxious, and they want to get out of Dodge and have cabin fever. So I think that there are plenty of benefit statements and features that can be incorporated into the message. But I think that still going back to that sincerity and doing well by doing good and doing the right thing needs to play into it too.
Thanks, Dina. That's all we got in the chat. So
Great.
Lauren.
Then I'm going to finish up with a question I'd love for both of you to answer. I'm going to ask it and then I'll toss it to Jeff to take first. But I've been seeing some new things pop up as a result of the environment we're in now. I'm calling them COVID trends, whether you should or shouldn't. And I'm wondering, from what you've seen, what maybe do you think are trends that become opportunities that could be here to stay, right? So for instance, TikTok, I'm not sure I would have ever thought TikTok might be used to actually communicate message, but when you see doctors using it to show you how to wash your hands, you kind of realize, holy cow, maybe there's something to this, that it has a leg for the future that we didn't think. Or if you knew my mom and you saw her using a computer to play her canasta game, who has never been digitally savvy about anything before, what does that open up for, a population that is being forced to learn a tool because they never had to? Contactless payments is also a pretty unique thing. So Jeff, first, if you wouldn't mind giving your perspective on what you think are trends that have emerged that might become standard business practice or opportunities for clients. And then Dina, if you would give us your perspective.
Well, I think that we're going to walk away from this with a lot more work from home scenarios. I think everyone's kind of getting comfortable with it now. And I've always said going into this, I've read articles that, it's 15% more productivity going when you're working from home anyway. So I think that, at the end of this, more businesses are going to have experience with, having had employees work from home and seeing that actually it's more productive that way. It doesn't harm the business. you know, they don't have to pay rent on a huge place if a lot of people are working remotely. It kind of opens up, you know, we've got employees in Maine and Florida and Maryland and Virginia, all over the place, and it's never affected us. So I know that from experience that's the truth, and I think a lot of people are going to learn that, you know, just from experiencing it. And I think at the end of this, it's going to be more common to be working from home.
Dina?
So I'm hopeful actually that the trend will continue where things are a bit more authentic and sincere. I think it's been great to see the CEOs at very large companies, organizations. You see them in their home, you see them vulnerable, they're talking directly. I think that trend will continue for a while. I think it depends what just the health climate is going to be in the down the road. But I would say over the next 8 to 12 months, I see that continuing in the marketing messaging. If you pay attention to any commercials or anything, you'll see that there's a shift toward more of a community-centric, authentic, sincere messaging. Other than that, I would say that from a positive standpoint, I think it is going to cause people to be more proactive. Things that they hadn't thought about before, kept putting on the back burner. They're kind of now their eyes are open and saying, gosh, I wish I would have done this 3 years ago or even 3 months ago. So hopefully people are going to see that and start planning, from all crisis angles. And then hopefully they'll avoid burnout, because I agree with Jeff on the productivity, but some of that remote work sometimes has some other negative ramifications of that too.
Great. So I'm super appreciative of Jeff and Dina's time. Clay, do you and Angie, we are at the top of the hour. I want to respect folks. Do you and Angie want to wrap this up for everyone?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Clay.
No, I just wanted to thank you guys for helping us here. Your insight was great. Closing remarks from Angie.
Yeah, no, first of all, on behalf of BBB and most importantly, the businesses that we serve, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Thank you for allowing us to share your resources. A quick reminder, we send out a follow-up email asking, how did we do? We share every resource that our speakers are willing to allow us to, links, resources, all places to go, find information. And also we will include in that email information about upcoming webinars. We have a follow-up to a second different but an additional webinar on marketing. We have one coming up on accounts receivable, all kinds of things like that. So please always check our business resource website and we will follow up. Huge thanks to all of you, and it was an honor to have you part of our BBB family. Thanks everybody, be safe and take care.